So I had a video all planned for today and I was tempted to change it and dive back into the latest quarterly Apple is doomed drama. But no, whatever. Even if it feels like the expose I did last time woke up enough people that the hype was escalated this time in retaliation, I'm not going to give into it. At least not entirely. Too long didn't read, it's happening again. Real reporters from real papers of record are taking often single source stories from the supply chain and without providing anything by way of context or clarity, weaving yet another quarterly Apple is doomed story to drive the stock price down ahead of what is usually the most lucrative earnings of the year. It's a rinse and repeat formula of hedge funds and market makers self-admittedly manipulating media into covering their shorts and making their quarters, damaging businesses and cheating investors without anyone ever being held accountable. Again, I've already been there and exposed that, so I'll link it below, and if you haven't watched it yet, you can see just how truly disgusting the entire process is. But for this video, I'm going to stick to what I originally had planned. Although with a twist. What happens when the rumors are wrong so always that they're eventually right? When the clock stuck on noon actually strikes 12? Who knows? Maybe this quarter, maybe 2 quarters from now, maybe a year, maybe 5 years, maybe 10. At some point, the law of large numbers kicks in and everyone on planet Earth who wants an iPhone has an iPhone, and one they're pretty much happy with. So then, what does Apple do? I'm Rene Ritchie. Welcome back to Vector. Thank you for joining me again. Let's do this. Sell more iPhones, get on Verizon. Sell more iPhones, get on China Mobile. Sell more iPhones, make them bigger. Sell more iPhones. Oh, you sold all the iPhones. Sorry. That's how Wall Street works. It doesn't matter how successful you are or how much money you make. It only matters how much more successful and how much more money you'll be able to make tomorrow. You could literally be earning $1 trillion a minute and they'll wreck you for a company losing almost that much because it could start making money tomorrow. But welcome to the bizarro world we live in, the one Apple and its investors have to deal with. And unless and until Apple can open up stores on Mars and start selling to aliens,
take me to your leader,
it's the one Apple has to prepare for post-iPhone. Now, from a product perspective, Apple's done a lot of that already. Everything from Apple TV to Apple Watch to HomePod to AirPods are products for people who already have iPhones. And Apple's pitch is, if you get these other products, they'll all provide even greater value together. Based on how Apple's previously quote-unquote other business has been growing, that's working, at least in terms of any business that's not already as big as the iPhone. In the future, if Apple goes ahead with special projects like augmented reality glasses or autonomous technologies, maybe even including a car, that could grow even bigger. Another angle of attack is services, and Apple's been doing a lot there as well, from the App Store and iTunes Store to Apple Music and Apple Pay and the upcoming magazine and television content. It's again a way to maybe conquest a few more customers, but also earn more from existing customers, again, by adding greater value. It's services that I want to focus on here, but not the traditional support or entertainment or even the new financial services, as fun and as lucrative as those are. No, I want to focus on something that I think could be even bigger for Apple and more important for us: health services. The Apple Watch needed a more accurate calorie counter. That's how it all began. Apple wanted fitness to be a flagship feature for its then new device, and there was no other way to do the job, even passingly right. So Apple invested in a heart rate monitor. It wasn't part of some secret multi-year plan to provide customers with health information or pitched to Apple executives and the board as a way of grabbing a piece of the multi-billion-dollar medical industry. When first envisioned, it wasn't even intended as a way to ensure Apple Pay security on the wrist, though it certainly turned out to be a fantastic way to do just that. It was simply a way to make sure the Workouts app recorded how many calories you were burning as accurately as possible. But it lit a spark. Watch, interestingly enough, is run by Apple's Chief Operating Officer, Jeff Williams, and as he and his teams, which include Kevin Lynch, the Vice President in charge of watchOS software, saw how it was working and what kind of data it was getting, health began to join fitness as an area of interest. It was still slow, it was still steady. Apple needed a place to store all the information it was getting from the watch, so the Health app was created. Then it was realized Health.app could store a whole bunch of similar information, and with more than just the watch. So HealthKit was born, which could talk not just to Watch but to other apps and accessories, becoming an inextricable part of it. The interesting thing about data is that once you start to get it, you start to imagine all the things that you can do with it. The heart rate data, for example, led Apple to wonder what could be done if it detected abnormal heart rates. It wasn't a hospital-grade sensor, to be sure, but it was almost always on you, and that's not true for most hospital-grade sensors for most people, at least most of the time. Apple also realized having devices with you all the time, including Apple Watch and iPhone, could be a boon to all sorts of health and medical related services. Medical ID was an obvious and early example. Just putting your critical medical information in an easy to access place could make sure emergency services personnel could get to it when they needed it, and when you needed it the most. ResearchKit was a less obvious example. As Apple started to think about how it could affect health at a larger scale, using the devices we have with us rather than relying on tear tag flyers seemed like it could be transformative. Again, it flew under the radar at first, never part of some big pitch or potential new revenue stream, but the potential benefits were enormous. The flip side of tear tag flyers for research were endless lists for follow-up care. The same ubiquity of the same devices, Apple realized, could also help with that. So, next came CareKit. Then Apple started using its devices and its security to link us with our medical institutions through health records. Now, interestingly, Apple has been accused of not consulting with outside healthcare professionals while working on the watch and on its fitness and healthcare features. And while that's true, it's only true because Apple, rather than work with outside professionals, actively recruits healthcare professionals into its projects. Many of the team leads on Apple's health initiatives have medical degrees or are doctors who still spend part of their time practicing. By bringing the expertise in-house, it means the experts can have earlier and fuller access to the projects, and instead of brief consultations, can help shape the projects and become invested in bringing them to market. It also means Apple isn't just building tools for researchers and caregivers. Apple is building tools as and with researchers and caregivers. Now, Apple famously has had absolutist ideas about privacy, some believe to a fault, denying themselves the acceleration in machine learning that could be gained from mining the data of its hundreds of millions of users. But to its core, Apple believes customer data belongs to customers and doesn't want anything to do with it unless it absolutely has to, and then for only so long as it absolutely has to. Data collection doesn't have to lead to data exploitation, though. That the biggest internet services companies have linked those two activities together, have conflated them, is a reflection only of the business models they've chosen. Different choices can also be made. That's why, after some reflection, Apple seems to have decided it doesn't have to be quite so absolutist about data, especially not when the benefit it could provide isn't about business model, but about customer care. So now, with HealthKit, Apple set it up so users can explicitly opt in to sharing their data. That way, if the effects or complexities of their conditions make it difficult for them to enter precise information, like what medications are being taken and when, Apple linking everything together can be of help to them. The advantage Apple has, and the peace of mind Apple customers have, is that none of the information is sucked up to anyone else's servers, used to feed anyone else's database or machine learning model, and then used to build up profiles and auctions for ads. Instead, the data is used to try and better understand healthcare concerns, to ultimately better treat patients, and the amount of trust that engenders can't be underestimated. Duke University's MS Mosaic is one example. The University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill's PPD Act is another. And yet, a lot of these studies also work with apps from the Google Play Store, and that's not a mistake. Apple intended ResearchKit to help everyone, not just people using Apple devices, and so they open sourced them so everybody can use them. That's the fascinating duality of Apple's current approach, solving healthcare problems for the individual with new watchOS features, and solving problems for healthcare itself with frameworks like ResearchKit and CareKit, and the new medical records feature. Okay, so that's all well and good as far as the tech goes, but what does it mean for the future of Apple's services, especially in a post-iPhone world? Quite possibly everything. Apple's already nailed some important use cases like communications and entertainment. Health could be every bit as big, if not bigger, and far, far more important. Apple never discusses future projects, of course, but it feels like we're still at the very beginning of its health and fitness activities. Additional sensors are the most often rumored, blood sugar top of most lists, though there could be many others. Like most rumors, realizing them in a practical, mainstream way can be harder and take longer than just typing them out in a blog post or talking about them in a YouTube video. Apple's reportedly also working on its own custom health silicon, which if you've seen what those teams have done with everything from systems on chips to systems in package, with sensor fusion hubs to wireless connectors, is beyond exciting. but it could still be bigger than that as well. And that's where I start to get really, really interested. Apple can use its existing expertise in security and privacy and convenience, not just to upend healthcare monitoring, but health procedure as well. I can already tap my Apple Watch for Apple Pay or to connect to gym kit equipment, and in some schools and at Apple Park itself, use it in place of student ID cards or employee badges. It's not hard to imagine that one day I might be able to walk into any clinic or hospital, tap my Apple Watch or iPhone, and immediately authorize the sharing of my existing health records, insurance information, my current medications and conditions, my allergies, if any, and all the other relevant data they need and I need them to have. Things that otherwise have to spend precious time tediously filling out from scratch each time, or worse, forget about and accidentally leave off. Having all of that tracked privately, securely, and having sensors and reminders helping out when and as needed, that by itself would be a healthcare revolution. As anyone who's been watching the show this week knows, we're already seeing healthcare go digital. Just look at Simple Contacts. It lets you renew your expired contact lens prescription and reorder your brand of lenses from your phone or computer in 5 minutes. You can take the Simple Contacts vision test online. A real doctor reviews it, and if your vision hasn't changed, renews your subscription. And if you already have an unexpired prescription, you just upload a photo of it or your doctor's info and order your lenses in minutes and for a great price. Best of all, you get $20 off your first Simple Contacts order just by going to simplecontacts.com/vector or entering vector at checkout. This certainly isn't a replacement for your periodic full eye health exam. You still need that, but it's the most convenient way to renew a prescription and reorder your contacts if your vision hasn't changed. Again, get $20 off your first Simple Contacts order just by going to simplecontacts.com/vector or entering vector at checkout. Thanks, Simple Contacts, and thanks to all of you for supporting the show. One day, Apple will reach peak iPhone. The whole pocket computer market will be less about revolution and more about foundation. There will always be new fashions and new features, of course, but it'll all just be taken for granted. But after years and years spent building up the iPhone, Apple will be able to use the iPhone to build up everything that comes next. That includes new devices like watches and headphones, and maybe one day glasses and cars, but also new services like music and magazines and television and mobile payments, and yeah, maybe health. If Apple can do what it did for communications and entertainment with health, then its post-iPhone future may even be better than its past, especially for us. At least that's what I think. Now I'd love to hear what you think. Hit like, hit subscribe, and then hit up the comments below and let me know. And thank you so much for watching.